scuba diving in my lake yesterday to fix my irrigation pickup pipes.
Really?
Prime line that goes out there and checks it out. 30 minutes in that cold water.
Ooh, I bet.
Plus,
No wetsuit. No
no,
wetsuit.
I had a buddy tow me out there with a jet ski to the buoy. And then spent 30 minutes on the bottom. When I came up, I was cold.
Okay. Let me go ahead and call to order the October 10th meeting of the St. Johns River Water Management District Governing Board. I am the Secretary, Chris Peterson. I will be gaveling this meeting today. Chairman Bradley has been excused, and Vice Chairman Miriam Gabby White is, I believe, on the telephone but will not be in attendance. So with that, let's go ahead and do as we always do and start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and do a roll call of the members, and Chair Bradley's been excused, and Miriam Gabby White.
Present.
There we go. Ron House.
Present, sir.
Chris Peterson, myself, I'm here. Ryan Atwood. Doug Bornick. Doug Burnett.
Here.
Cole Oliver.
Here.
And Janet Price. Here. Excellent. We have a quorum. Okay, so first up on the agenda, let's see. We have employee awards as we do every month. And Robin Hudson, you are recognized.
Join us today. We would like to congratulate Katie Von Canal, the October Employee of the Month. Katie is a Senior Regulatory Information Specialist in the Office of Records and Regulatory Support, working in our Palm Bay Service Center. In February, the Palm Bay Property Specialist, who managed the store's warehouse, resigned. While staff worked to fill the vacancy, Katie immediately recognized a need to perform some of the former staff members' daily responsibilities to help her Palm Bay co-workers in the Office of Financial Services. Katie worked across organizational lines to ensure Palm Bay staff continued to have access to supplies and materials. Katie's attitude and willingness to help others exemplifies an outstanding employee. Thank you, Katie, for all you do. A 5-year service award for Stacy Lighthizer, Compliance Supervisor in the Bureau of Environmental Resource Regulation. Thank you, Stacy. A 15-year service award for Chris Holmberg, Technical Program Coordinator in the Bureau of Water Use Regulation. Chris manages all wetland evaluations for the Consumptive Use Permitting Program, including technical review of applications, assisting applicants with development and implementation of wetland monitoring plans, and conducting compliance activities. He is also the co-lead for the Environmental Measures Technical Team for CFWI, which is responsible for conducting environmental assessments and analysis for the development of regional water supply plans. Chris is responsible for ensuring relevant and defensible data are collected in order to provide protection of over 1 million acres of wetlands in the CFWI planning region. We are fortunate to have Chris on our team. Thank you, Chris, for 15 years of service to the district. A 15-year service award to Barbara Sullivan, Regulatory Information Specialist in the Office of Records and Regulatory Support. Barbara's responsibilities include data capture of permit application submittals. She performs quality assurance checks of technical staff reports and is also tasked with issuing permits, sending letters, and processing receipt of fees. For the last 10 years, Barbara has been the district's representative for the Water Well Contractor Program activities. Barbara has been recognized by her customers, both internal and external, for her attention to detail and her ability to guide them through their questions in e-permitting as well as questions dealing with contractor licensing. She is very patient and a detail trainer. Thank you, Barbara, for 15 years of service to the district. A A 20-year service award for Michelle Volpe, Regulatory Information Specialist in the Office of Regulatory Support. Michelle is the smiling face that greets staff and guests at the Jacksonville Service Center. She has answered over 600 customer service, regulatory help, and switchboard calls this year, assisting the public with compliance, permitting, and various questions. Michelle has been recognized by her customers, both internal and external, for her patience and pleasant attitude. She is also responsible for data capture of application submittals, performing quality assurance checks on technical staff reports, and issuing permits. Michelle is a highly valued member of the district's team. Thank you, Michelle, for 20 years of dedicated service to the district. Thank you.
Oh, well, that's great. Thank you. And it's always a pleasure to be able to see people on these milestones, and it's to celebrate all of our great staff. Now we have the hydraulic conditions report. Ms. Chris Mundy, you are recognized.
Good morning, Chairman and members of the Governing Board. I'm Christine Mundy, Bureau Chief of Water Resource Information, and this morning I'm presenting the October Hydrologic Conditions Report representing data from the month of September. The total rainfall for the month of September was quite variable across the district. Some areas were very dry, receiving less than 3 inches of rain, and many other areas received only 3 to 6 inches of rain in a month when the average rainfall is closer to 7. In contrast, there were regions of very high rainfall in Flagler, Volusia, and South Putnam counties, as well as in the upper headwaters of the St. Johns River at the southern end of the district. The countywide totals ranged from a high of 10.2 inches for Flagler to a low of only 2.4 inches for Alachua. For some areas of the district, most of September's rain actually fell in the last week of September, and that's what this month depicts. During this time, there was a significant rainfall event that impacted Flagler, Volusia, and South Putnam counties, with more than 10 inches of rain in some areas. And as a result, there were some localized flooding impacts, in particular Haw Creek. The little map on the right is a portion of the larger map. The location of the Haw Creek USGS station is the red triangle, and the red outline is the Haw Creek drainage basin. The chart in the lower right is from NOAA's River Observation webpage, showing the station in moderate flood status. Now, Haw Creek drains into Crescent Lake, which then drains into the St. Johns River. At the same time as this rainfall event, we were seeing king tides combined with persistent north and northeast winds that was causing minor flooding in vulnerable areas along the lower St. Johns River and south into Astor, which also rose just above moderate flood stage for several days. It's worth noting that there will be more king tides occurring at the end of this month as well as at the end of November, along with the potential for some localized flooding if the meteorological conditions also kind of make that more likely. Throughout all these events, we've been monitoring river levels and will continue to do so as the season progresses. This slide depicts rainfall over the past 12 months. Now, because this is a moving 12-month window, Hurricane Ian's extreme rainfall, which occurred in September of 22, is no longer included in this image. The rainfall over the past 12 months was below average now throughout most of the district, except for the southern end of the district and coastal St. Johns, Flagler, Volusia, and Brevard counties. At the beginning of October, flow conditions throughout the district were mostly in the average range for this time of year, except for the St. Johns River at Satsuma Station, which was in the very low range, and the St. Johns River near DeLand in the low range, and the Econ River flow was in the high range. Now we'll look at lake levels in long-term lake sites. Lake Brooklands level increased 0.6 of a foot during September. Lake Weir decreased 1/10 of a foot. Lake Winnimisset's level increased 0.4 of a foot, and Lake Apopka's level changed to very little during the month of September. The water level in Blue Cypress Lake increased 1.4 feet, and the lake is now being brought back to its regulation schedule. At the end of September, upper Florida aquifer conditions were in the low range in Duval County, the high range in southern Volusia, eastern Seminole, northern Brevard counties, and in Alachua County, and then normal range elsewhere throughout the district. And at the end of September, the upper Florida aquifer the upper Florida aquifer index value was 49, near the midpoint of the normal range for this time of year. In the next series of slides, I'll review changes in flow at selected spring sites. And all 4 springs included in this report showed very little change during the month relative to their current flow. The flow in Silver Springs decreased 11 cubic feet per second with a monthly mean of 627 cubic feet per second. Mean monthly flow for September at Blue Springs decreased slightly. And the flow at Rock Springs, the monthly mean increased slightly. The monthly mean flow at Wekiwa Springs decreased slightly compared to the end of August. For the month of September, the well plugging program plugged 11 wells, saving an additional 2.08 million gallons per day, which brings the total water saved by this program since November of 2020 to 45.385 million gallons per day. Now, normally that concludes this month's report, but for today I added a couple of special slides. Every month there's a team of dedicated staff who generate the data and all of the summaries that you see at these monthly board meetings, and I'd like to thank them for their efforts. First, I also want to recognize the field team. The map on the left represents our extensive hydrologic data collection network with around 1,200 stations at 650 different locations and thousands of pieces of equipment. And many of these locations are in remote or difficult to access spots in the field. These are the staff who maintain that network, and they do it with integrity and great attention to detail. I'm very proud of the hard work that they do and their commitment to data integrity and reliability. These are the staff who quality assure all that data for the entire monitoring network. They also produce the monthly board graphics as well as the many, many dozens more graphics that are put on our webpage every month. Now, they quality assure all of our data, but for the data that you see in these board reports, they give it an extra level of quality checks. And the staff complete this QA work and graphics generation oftentimes with very little turnaround time. They're always committed to producing work that they and we can be proud of. They're full of new ideas, quick to respond to my special requests, and very deserving of a big thank you. I'd also like to give a special thank you to Michael Daly, the Technical Program Manager, for leading all of these staff and managing the program. And with that, I conclude the report and would be happy to take questions.
All right, well, thank you. Any board members have any questions, comments on the hydraulic conditions report this month? No? Oh, Ron.
No comment, but just thank you. I like the extraordinary rainfall sheet that you did. That was good. That helps us know.
Good, Ms. Mundy, thank you. Okay, Mr. Register, I understand there has been one change to the agenda since it was published, and I've consented to staff's request to remove item 22 from the consent agenda. So, do we have a do we have a motion to approve the consent? Well, hang on one second. Ms. Winkler, do we have any public comment cards for the agenda?
We do, sir. Jeremy Johnston with CCUA.
Okay, thank you.
And this is related to item 14 on the consent agenda.
Are you speaking on 14? Okay, thank you.
Good morning, Chairman and governing board members. On behalf of our Board of Supervisors and the entire CCUA team, thank you for allowing me to speak regarding the North Florida Regional Water Supply Plan Project conceptualization. I begin by thanking, on behalf of CCUA and the other utilities, the St. Johns and Swanee River Water Management District staffs on their work developing the North Florida Regional Water Supply Plan. We understand your staff have invested significant amounts of time and effort developing the plan. The effort to begin the North Florida Regional Water Supply Plan project conceptualization began from a meeting on April 7th. This meeting was a discussion between the St. Johns and Suwannee River Water Management Districts, DEP, JEA, GRU, St. Johns County Utility Department, and CCUA. We asked how we can work together to address several challenges that are converging. Specifically, we discussed our collective desires to address MFLs, meet zero surface water discharge requirements, provide long-term stability related to consumptive use permitting, and capital infrastructure planning. From the April 7th meeting, we have collaboratively developed the scope of services and the cooperative funding agreement being considered today. The cooperative funding agreement between CCUA and St. John's provides the funding mechanism for participation between St. John's, Suwannee, and FDEP. A memorandum of agreement between CCUA, JEA, GRU, and St. John's County Utility Department to fund the utility portion is already in motion. CCUA's Board of Supervisors has approved the agreements. And when all the agreements are signed, we stand ready to schedule the kickoff meeting to commence this effort. We find ourselves at a unique moment in time. By bringing together the best professional experts across our respective organizations, we have an opportunity to sustainably solve some big challenges our region faces. By working collaboratively between state agencies, utilities, and other stakeholders, we can identify key large-scale capital projects that will connect water surpluses with water deficits. We have an opportunity to truly interconnect water resources, allowing our great state the ability to sustainably manage those resources. CCUA stands in support of this cooperative funding agreement and the North Florida Regional Water Supply Plan project conceptualization effort this agreement represents. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Okay, we have for consideration on our agenda items 11 through 21 and 23 through 26, omitting number 22. Do any board members wish to pull any other items for discussion? No? Do we have a motion on this on it?
So moved.
Second, Mr. Chair. Okay, thank you very much. Any further discussion from board members? No? I just would like to make a comment that sometimes I think if anybody thinks that we just go through the consent agenda and don't consider it, each of those items will come to us with a lot of research and a lot of information behind it. So, you know, it's important, and I just will let everybody know I take them very serious and take a look at each one of them. And if no one has any further discussion, let's go ahead and have a vote. And for all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Okay. We have item number 4. Dean Doberful, would you please let us know about the phosphorus remediation in the Ocklawaha Prairie Restoration Area?
Absolutely. Good morning, Chair and board members. Dean Doberful, Bureau Chief, Environmental Sciences. Today I will be seeking approval for a DEP Innovation Grant funded project to treat excess phosphorus at the Ocklawaha Prairie Restoration Area. The district will be working with CPRO Corporation to test their lanthanum-based technologies in a restored muck farm setting, which is a new use for this particular technology. The project is located in the Ocklawaha River Strategic Planning Basin and falls under the Water Quality Mission. While this is a water quality project, addressing the P export problem will allow improved hydrologic management, which will in turn have significant natural systems benefits. This figure illustrates the water quality problem in the restoration area. Enrichment from the previously farmed muck soils causes phosphorus concentrations to be considerably higher within the prairie, seen here in the red line, as opposed to the river, which you see in the blue line below. Therefore, water releases from the prairie can cause significant nutrient load to the river. This image shows the former muck farm area. As with several other river systems in Florida, like the Kissimmee, the Army Corps straightened the river by dredging the C-212 canal and leveeing off a portion of the former floodplain. You can see the original sinuous river channel within the restoration area. To actively flow water through this area and perhaps eventually restore the historic river channel, we must address nutrients. This project will test treating the sediments in an approximately 30-acre block in the southern region, which you can see in the little pin on the bottom, to reduce phosphorus flux to the water. A different form of the technology will also be tested to reduce phosphorus in water discharged from the restoration area, and that would occur at the pin in the top part of the image. Treating discharge from the restoration area will require sophisticated technology to both monitor and adjust treatment rates in real time. Our selected vendor, CPro, has experience deploying autonomous monitoring and treatment platforms in a range of challenging environments. This slide shows examples of these deployments and typical packaging for the product used to treat the water in the center top photo. The sediment treatment product is applied by watercraft, and you can see some examples of applications in these photos. Typical treatments occur in open water bodies like lakes. However, this project will test the efficacy of application and treatment in a wetland-dominated system. Staff requests that the board take the requested action detailed on this slide, and I will take any questions you might have.
Okay. Dean, Ms. Winkler, do we have any public comments?
No, sir.
No, we do not. Do we have a motion to approve item number 4?
So moved.
So moved in a second?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion from board members or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor of item number 4?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Thank you, Dean. Now, moving on, we have item number 5, which is the rough fish removal for Lake Apopka in the Ocklawaha River Basin and Lake George in Central St. Johns River Basin. Dean, you're recognized again.
Got me again.
Thank you.
Dean Doberfull, Environmental Sciences Bureau Chief. This morning, staff are asking for approval for a contract to continue rough fish harvests in district lakes. Rough fish harvests are planned this year for Lake George in the Middle St. Johns Strategic Planning Basin and Lake Apopka in the Ocklawaha River Strategic Planning Basin, both shown in the red boxes here. Stars indicate both currently harvested lakes and other lakes where rough fish harvests have been historically used as part of a restoration program. Typically, we will utilize harvesting as a restoration tool until there is evidence that the game fish population in that particular lake has started to recover. This slide shows the harvest process. Fish are caught in long nets deployed in the lake. The net is pulled in after several hours, and the fish are painstakingly removed from the net and taken back to a landing facility where they are washed and immediately packed in ice and temporarily stored in refrigerated trailers. Over the years, the process has become quite efficient. And while the process is cost effective, we continue to seek out new markets for the harvested fish. The removal of rough fish is one of the exercises we use in our diet and exercise program to reduce phosphorus availability in target lakes. This figure shows historical annual harvests in Lake Apopka. Over the past 30 years, over 31 million pounds of shad have been removed from the lake. And that represents over 260,000 pounds of phosphorus directly moved from the lake in fish biomass. The direct removal of phosphorus out of the lake only costs an average of $96 per pound of phosphorus. In terms of environmental nutrient controls, that's the cheapest game in town. Alternative techniques are generally in the hundreds to thousands of dollars per pound. There are also a couple of other important benefits. These fish eat material out of the sediments and excrete phosphorus. So the harvest has indirectly reduced this phosphorus mining from the fish by over 600,000 pounds. Maybe the most important benefit from the public's perspective is that the harvest creates opportunities for the game fish population to increase. And we have seen evidence of that with increased fishing pressure and tournament usage within Lake Apopka particularly. We've shown this graph many times, but I think the message bears repeating. The annual average phosphorus concentration in Lake Apopka was below the TMDL target for the first time last year. The shad harvest is not solely responsible for this trend, but it is an important component of the lake's recovery. While the numbers look good, that doesn't mean the lake is yet fixed or self-sustaining. We'll have to continue our exercise regimen until the lake gets to and stays at a stable condition. So staff recommend the board take the action shown on this slide, and again, I will take any questions.
Thank you. Ms. Winkler, do we have any public comments?
No, sir.
Okay. Do we have a motion on number 5? So moved in a second. Thank you. I do have we're open for discussion, but I have a quick question. I've noticed over the years that this particular program is like you had said, one of the most cost-effective ways to remove phosphorus. If budget allowing, are there other places within the district that we could expand this to in the future that would be beneficial?
Oh, absolutely. There are a number of lakes that have both exotic fish and in particular gizzard shad. We continue to look for those lakes. There are constraints that narrow where this particular technique can be used, depth, artifacts, things like that. But we continue to look for opportunities to expand this.
Fantastic. Anybody have any further questions?
Question similar to that. Do we maximize the amount of fish harvest on Lake Apopka? Is there an opportunity to increase this program, or is it as high as it can be?
We maximize it with respect to the number of fishermen available. So there's only so many people that want to engage in this activity, and we beat the bushes every year and try to find as many as we can. So in good years, we almost max out our budget. In years with not so many fishermen, we still have a little money left over. So we feel like we are maximizing the resources out there.
Very good. Any further questions on number 5? No? Okay. Seeing none, let's go ahead and I'll call for the vote. And all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on to number 6. We're going to call upon Amy Wright, the Bureau of Operations and Maintenance Work Plan for fiscal year 2023 and 24.
Morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. My name is Amy Wright, and I'm a supervising professional engineer in the Bureau of Operations and Maintenance. And my item for your consideration today is approval of my Bureau's fiscal year 23-24 work plan. This is a list of the 13 projects included in this year's O&M budget work plan for a total of $2.05 million of work. In addition to the 13 projects on the previous slide that are in the operations and maintenance budget, we will be coordinating the construction phase for 4 projects that are in the budgets for other district bureaus. 3 are for the Bureau of District Projects and Construction, and 1 project is for the Bureau of Environmental Sciences. The cost for these projects, along with the O&M projects, comes to an estimated $3.24 million of work in this year's overall O&M work plan. The board memo in your packet has notes regarding the authorized means of procurement for these 17 projects. As many as 9 will come back to the board for approval consideration and after competitive bidding, while other projects will be completed using our annual civil contractors or in-house work crews. The remainder of my presentation will focus on the projects that we plan to bring back to the governing board in future months. We anticipate these projects will be placed on the consent agenda unless the board requests presentations at the time of contract award. I'll be going through these projects in order of highest cost to lowest cost, with the O&M budgeted projects first, and the projects we're completing for our sister bureaus at the end. You may recognize the map on the left, which shows in orange hatch the areas where the district provides structural flood protection in the form of flood control levees and water control structures. The map on the right shows the locations of the projects in our work plan for this year. The items in red are the projects in the O&M Bureau budget, and the items in blue are the budgets for the other bureaus. It should come as no surprise that the bulk of our work falls in the areas where we provide structural flood protection, namely the Upper St. Johns River Basin and the Ocklawaha River Basin. There are 2 bridge replacements in our work plan this year that lie in the Middle St. Johns River Basin, which are in Lake George and Hart Island conservation areas. And I would like to mention that while the costs may not rise to the level of being an individual line item in the O&M capital plan, O&M personnel and our contractors actually perform work in all of the basins across the district every year for minor projects like culvert and road repairs, dock replacements, minor walkway repairs, and mechanical vegetation removal. So with that, we'll start with the Lake Apopka Wildlife Drive. The Wildlife Drive is a one-way, 11-mile drive meandering through the eastern portion of the Lake Apopka North Shore in Orange County. The Wildlife Drive isn't just for recreation, it also serves an environmental role because the levees that form the drive are used to separate the various treatment areas on the North Shore. Over time, the slopes along the Wildlife Drive and some of the adjacent project levees have sloughed, and if not repaired, could compromise the driving surface and overall stability of the levees. An example of what this looks like is the photo in the upper left. Last fiscal year, we repaired the slopes on Laughlin Road by lowering the water level in the canal, then regrading the slope and stabilizing it with riprap and sod. That completed work is shown in the photo on the lower left. This fiscal year, we plan to stabilize the slopes along Roach Road in a similar manner. Also last fiscal year, we stabilized 3,000 linear feet of Welland Road using a product called Dredge Socks. This work is shown in the center photos. This product uses a double-layered, high-density polyethylene knitted mesh that fill material is pumped into. The resulting pouch is staked against the existing slope, and it requires no dewatering or slope preparation. Sod can be established on the product after construction. This fiscal year, we intend to stabilize the remainder of Welland Road with this or a similar product. The work along Roach Road will be completed using one of our annual civil contractors, while the work on Welland Road will be competitively bid, and we expect to bring this back before the governing board in January for approval. Fellsmere Grade, which is located on the border between Brevard and Indian River counties, is a lime rock road approximately 5.4 miles long with a 24-foot wide driving surface. It's the primary access for the public and district staff to properties in the Upper St. Johns River Basin, including the St. Johns Water Management Area or Stick Marsh, the Fellsmere Water Management Area or Headwaters Lake, and the T.M. Goodman Waterfowl Management Area. These properties offer outstanding aquatic habitats and support a wide range of recreational opportunities. As such, the Fellsmere Grade has significant traffic volume year-round, and over the years, the lime rock surface of the grade has deteriorated with weather and heavy use. We are proposing to competitively bid the purchase of lime rock, then to perform the work, we'll use either in-house personnel, one of our annual civil contractors, or a combination of the two. The district capped most of our federal levies several years ago, which eliminated many of our rutting and depression issues, improved the rideability, and reduced the frequency of grading significantly. However, over time, as with Fellsmere Grade, the lime rock breaks down and rutting of the levee caps is beginning to occur. Recapping these levees every 6 to 7 years is part of our routine maintenance plan and ensures the long-term integrity of the federal flood protection levee system. The work will be completed by in-house crews, and the lime rock will be competitively procured. We expect to bring this back before the governing board in December for approval of the lime rock purchase. During the district's semi-annual inspections of all of our flood control levees, we note issues like lack of sod cover, erosion, and slope stability concerns. The photo on the left is an example of what a levee in need of work might look like. Our general method for addressing these issues is to regrade the levees to their original design slope, add topsoil, then seed or sod the disturbed area. This is work that we regularly perform on our flood control levees following our spring or fall inspections. But this year, the biggest effort will be to repair a 1-mile section of L74 North and a small portion of the L77 West levee that's showing toe erosion. Toe erosion generally occurs due to wake or wave action on the shoreline, which you can see in the center photo. This is a levee where we planted aquatic vegetation to provide protection for the shoreline last year, but we had some big storms come through, and there was about 1,000 feet that developed some toe erosion before the plantings could take hold. So our plan is to regrade and place additional fill as needed while working to maintain the existing aquatic vegetation. The Duda Pump Station is located on the Lake Apopka North Shore at the south end of the north-south road. This pump station consists of two 36-inch pumps with 100 horsepower motors and helps us manage water levels across the property. This discharge is treated with alum before being pumped back into the lake. The pump station has not been refurbished since it was installed in the late 90s. We plan to refurbish the pumps and motors, refurbish the flap gates, and repair a leaking flange. We anticipate bringing this project back to the governing board in January. Next up is loop trail improvements. The loop trail extends over 20 miles around Lake Apopka's northern border, from Magnolia Park in Orange County to the Green Mountain Trailhead in Lake County, and it provides opportunities for the public to enjoy viewing wildlife while hiking or biking. We had anticipated completing this work last fiscal year, but the transportation costs associated with trucking the lime rock required the project to be completed over a 2-year period. So we will complete this project this fiscal year. For this project, the district will competitively bid the procurement of lime rock, while district staff will perform the construction. And the photo on the left is on the slide is typical of regrading projects completed by district staff. Next up, the northernmost segment of the Wildlife Drive experiences higher traffic volume and more large trucks than the remainder of the drive because it serves as one of the main entry and exit points onto the North Shore. Because of the heavy use, this section of the drive has required ongoing maintenance in recent years. To minimize the long-term maintenance, the district intends to pave this portion of the roadway using a chip seal. Chip seal is a surface treatment consisting of a thick layer of polymer-modified asphalt emulsion, followed immediately by a layer of high-quality crushed granite chips. A rubber tire roller is used to embed the chips into the emulsion, which creates a tightly knit riding surface that will last for many years. We chose the chip seal application for this project because the roadway is built atop an old farm levee and could experience minor movement. And it's also more affordable than traditional asphalt pavement. The average life expectancy of the chip seal application is around 7 years. This is one of the projects that the Operations and Maintenance Bureau will be coordinating construction for the Bureau of District Projects and Construction. The Apopka-Beau Claire Canal, which we usually call the AB Canal, is the only discharge from Lake Apopka. It flows from south to north and leads to the Apopka-Beau Claire Lock and Dam, which you can see near the top of the map. The total length of the levee adjacent to the canal is approximately 3.5 miles. Increased boating on Lake Apopka and the Harris Chain of Lakes is causing erosion to become an issue on the AB Canal levee, as you can see in the photo on the upper left. Last fiscal year, we stabilized nearly 1.25 miles of the northern portion of the levee with riprap and sod, which you can see in the center photo. This year, we're planning to stabilize the remaining 2.25 miles of the southern portion of the levee with a combination of riprap and a geosynthetic product. This product is the same product that was successfully used on the Wildlife Drive last year. The placement of the riprap will be completed by one of our annual civil contractors, and placement of the geosynthetic product will be competitively bid. We expect to bring this back to the governing board in February. Another project for the Bureau of District Projects and Construction, Conrad and Hooper Farm Roads act as levees along the west and south side of the Phase 5 cell on the Lake Apopka North Shore. These lime rock roads need to be raised to allow for additional water storage and for more operational control when moving water on the North Shore. This improvement will also be necessary to manage the dredged sediments that will be introduced by the Newton Park dredging project, which will be designed by WSP this fall. The lime rock for this project will be procured with the purchase of the lime rock for the loop trail improvements, and so will be handled by a contractor through competitive solicitation. The lime rock will be placed by in-house staff. These pictures are typical of a road grading project completed by in-house staff, and these happen to be road improvements at Silver Springs Forest Conservation Area. With that, this completes my summary of the projects we anticipate we will be bringing back before the board this fiscal year, and we are asking the board's approval of our overall O&M fiscal year 2023-24 work plan. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Go ahead, General.
Thank you, Ms. Chairman. As we look at alternative materials to the traditional lime rock and asphalt, I want to make sure the staff knows that there's a lot of alternative materials out there that are toxic and have caused a lot of problems. The residue from the scrubbers and coal fire plants looks good. They use it at Camp Blaney. Looks like shredded asphalt. Problem is, it's very toxic and has a lot of side effects to it. So let's make sure we do some good research on what some of the alternative materials may have as unintended second, third order consequences. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any further questions?
Mr. Chair, just sometimes when you're bidding some of these items, and you'll know it better than me, but sometimes a soil cement or a coquina cemented base versus a lime rock base is more appropriate. And sometimes if you give people the alternate, you might be able to save some money just based on hauling, but it just depends on where you're at and how the contractors are feeling and what roads are going in where. So
The transportation costs are always a big factor in any of those projects that we're going to, and then as you can see, many of our projects this year involve placement of lime rock. So it's definitely a big factor in our budget this year.
I assume we have alternates for, we're just not approving lime rock. We're giving
Oh,
you,
yes,
we're
yeah.
giving you the ability to make decisions and be a
Right.
professional engineer that you are.
Thank you.
With that, move for
Other
approval.
comments from anybody? No. Mr. Register, is this, the requested action is slightly different than the published requested action. So is this an amended action?
Yes, it would be what's in the published agenda, which I think the only difference is making sure that the executive director can execute any related documents like work orders and other things. So the agenda item references approval of the work plan and approval to do any related budget transfer and execution of work orders and other purchase orders and those type things.
So the motion will be for the one as published?
As stated in the agenda.
Stated
Yes,
in the
sir.
agenda. Okay.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Atwood. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll go ahead and call for a vote. And all those in favor of item number 6?
Aye.
Aye.
And those opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Thank you. Ms. Wright, thank you for that very informative report. I appreciate it. And so we're going to move on to number 7. Mr. Dale Jenkins, you'll be recognized. Thank you.
Morning, Mr. Peterson and board members. Dale Jenkins, Director, Division of Infrastructure and Land Resources. My informational item for you today is an update on what we're doing in the division. Things have changed a little bit since the last time. The last update was in June. We are known as a division of projects, so our name has changed. The executive office did a little bit of reorganization, so not only did we change our name, but we took on an additional bureau. So we have 4 bureaus now. We had 3. We lost 1, but we gained 2. So now we have 4 bureaus, and we doubled in size staff-wise. On the left are the two of the charter members of the division, District Projects and Construction Operations and Maintenance, and they're led by Woody Boynton in Operations and Maintenance, Bob Nailway in District Projects and Construction. The 2 new bureaus in the division now are Transportation and Facilities, led by Dave Dickens, and Land Resources by Brian Emanuel, and their primary responsibilities are shown here on the slide. And I'd just like to remember, to mention to the board that this reorganization really was a great thing for us because these 4 bureaus work very closely together and always have. So now they're all under the same roof, so that's kind of a good thing. I want to start off with the Bureau of Operations and Maintenance, as Woody and his great staff typically do, and Amy just presented the work plan for this fiscal year. They typically complete every project in their work plan, and as you can see by this table, these 19 projects finished on time, on budget. So we're really proud of what they do. And I just want to talk about a few of the projects really briefly of that they have completed. Starting in the lower photograph, this is along Levee L77 West. where we it's a flood control basin and it's a flood control levee in the upper basin. It was regraded, sodded, and aquatic plants were planted, as you can see right here, to help prevent erosion from boat wakes and things like that. Moving up to the top left, you heard Amy mention this one. This is where we put sod and riprap along the AB Canal, and this is some of the work that was done last fiscal year. Center top photograph is stabilization of a section of the Lake Apopka Wildlife Drive, and that was conducted with riprap and sod. I think Amy also showed a picture of this. And on the upper right, that represents the refurbished gates of the S2 water control structure at the Fellsmere Grade recreational area. Moving along into the Bureau of District Projects and Construction, I'll give you a couple quick summaries of the construction progress for our 2 water resource development projects, starting off with Black Creek. As you know, this consists of 3 primary construction elements: the pump station and intake at the South Fork of Black Creek, a pipeline and a treatment system that the pipeline connects from the pump station to the treatment system. And I'm happy to announce that all these now are under contract and construction, and the pre-construction meeting for the treatment system is tomorrow, and we expect that to go to construction later this month. So everything's off and running right now. Just a couple quick comments for the pump station and intake. This lower left photograph shows where the pump cans are all constructed and backfilled. Up here is just an aerial view showing the same thing. Over here in the upper right, this is the intake structure, which is close to substantial completion. Down here, this is something the board hasn't seen yet. This is the electrical building, which is right about, if I go back to the upper left, right about there. And the electrical building is where all the electrical components will be installed that will run the pumps. And those components now, all the electrical gear is going to be, I think it's already delivered, but staged somewhere because we're not quite through at the electrical building. But the roof trusses are going on the electrical building this week, I believe. And we hope to have the electrical gear in that building by the end of the month. At the center photograph is just a section of the pipeline along State Road 21. We've got about 4,500 feet of pipeline in right now, making about 400 feet per day as long as weather permits. So that's coming along rather nicely. Moving on to the second of our regionally significant water resource development projects. This one's in the Upper Basin, Crane Creek M1 Canal Flow Restoration Project. All the construction elements or the elements of this project are indicated on the map to the right, and I just want to focus on this orange area right here. This is the east force main. Pictures of that force main are indicated in these photographs. This force main will connect the east pump station to the stormwater treatment area on the other side of I-95. This pipeline here is being directionally drilled beneath I-95. It's a little more than 50% complete. We expect it to be completed in a couple weeks, and then we'll move on to another one of these construction elements that you see in the map on the right. Moving along to the Bureau of Transportation and Facilities. The Bureau of Transportation and Facilities is managed by Dave Dickens, as I mentioned earlier. This bureau is responsible for the operation and maintenance of the district's transportation fleet and buildings, including a 550 unit transportation fleet that consists of elements from tractor implements all the way up to semis. And this bureau is responsible for the maintenance of 10 of our buildings. All the buildings on this map in the center that are in orange are our field stations. There's 6 of those, and there's 4 service centers, including district headquarters, shown by the green star. And we have service centers in Jacksonville, Apopka, and Palm Bay, moving from north to south. This slide features some of the Bureau of Transportation and Facilities transportation accomplishments last fiscal year, and some of their plans for this fiscal year. We have 3 vehicle repair shops, and last year the staff completed 1,600 work orders between our 9 mechanics working at those shops. Work ranged from oil changes to airboat engine overhauls. And I want to thank the governing board for approving the consent agenda today, in particular item 25, which was replacement of 13 vehicles. Moving on to facilities, Dave's team of 5 staff members has made significant improvements to our 10 buildings, completing 1,100 work orders last fiscal year. Several of our larger facility improvement projects are listed here, including beginning a building automation system upgrade, which will control the HVAC systems at our headquarters and the Apopka and Palm Bay service centers. We have a large number of projects planned for this fiscal year, including painting of common areas, renovation of district headquarters lobby restrooms, and renovating the district lab. Dave's also the district's emergency coordinating officer and responsible for emergency operations. Each year, Dave coordinates across divisional boundaries to ensure the district is prepared when disaster hits by updating the district's emergency management plans, conducting exercises, and coordinating with staff, local governments, and state partners. I mentioned at the beginning of my presentation of the close coordination between these 4 bureaus. This is a prime example of that. Dave's Bureau, the Bureau of Land Resources, and the Bureau of Operations and Maintenance work very, very closely in emergency situations, and they work very well together. Finally, I'd like to end up by talking a little bit about the Bureau of Land Resources and what they do, and a sampling of some of their accomplishments last fiscal year. Bureau Chief Brian Emanuel leads a staff of 38 that manages the district's natural lands portfolio, consisting of 42 conservation areas that cover over 400,000 acres of land. They are responsible for the administration, planning, and implementation of all aspects of land management here that are summarized here on the right. I want to feature the 4 areas highlighted in red. First, fire management. Prescribed fire is the most valuable and cost-effective tool that land managers have to manage most of the natural communities under our care. This past year, they performed 62 controlled burns on over 33,000 acres under district ownership. Furthermore, staff and contractors managed and maintained 660 miles of fire lines. Since vegetation grows in these fire lines, they need to be plowed regularly because the vegetation can burn and make the fire lines fail. Invasive plant management is a big priority for the Bureau staff. Both aquatic and terrestrial plant management are important aspects of management for both natural systems health, as well as water supply and flood protection. This slide lists some of the management successes of the Bureau staff this past fiscal year. Restoration treatment is a category of invasive plant management that includes local eradication of invasive species with a treatment or 2, and once gone, we can keep it at bay with fire or hydrology. This aerial photo represents an example of restoration treatment in the marsh at River Lakes Conservation Area near Lake Washington by spraying Carolina willow. On the right are dead willows that encroached into the marsh, but that's not the end of the story. This is a photo taken this year of the marsh on the north side of Lake Washington, 4 years after a Carolina willow treatment was completed, showing a much more biologically diverse marsh. Land Resources generates revenue from a variety of sources. Currently, the number 1 source of revenue is through the sale of pine trees. The primary reason for harvesting pine trees is forest health, and the generated revenue goes back into the Bureau's budget for land management purposes. This past fiscal year was the 2nd highest revenue year for timber sales at over $1.6 million. There is much work that goes into managing timber, and our dedicated staff forester manages a state-of-the-art forestry database. Also, and importantly, we use forested areas as buffers along important water bodies. The district adopts a dispersed recreation model of public access and provides a variety of nature-based services for the general public, such as hiking, biking, fishing, hunting, equestrian, and other activities. Some of last year's fiscal accomplishments are shown here. Importantly, the Bureau of Land Resources is also closely aligned with the Bureau of Operations and Maintenance as they both work together related to items such as trail maintenance and mowing, as well as construction or maintenance of bridges, culverts, and low water crossings. This work further maximizes enjoyment of the public's experience on district lands. The board will get a much more thorough discussion of public use of district lands in the next presentation provided by Patrick McCord, who is the Bureau of Land Resources specialist in charge of public use coordination. And that concludes my presentation and would be happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Jenkins, I would just say, wow, you guys have got a lot of stuff that you guys have been up to and doing a great job. I will have to say, someone has to manage my own business. I am duly impressed that in this time of labor shortages, supply chain issues, and rising costs, that you have your 22-23 work plan was completed on time and on budget, and you and your team need to be commended on that. I think that's wonderful.
Mr. Peterson, I'm glad to lead such a dedicated group of staff in the entire division.
As in my business, if you have a good staff, it makes you look good.
Sure does.
I can tell you have that. Anybody else have any further questions, discussion on this?
Great job.
Yeah, good job. So, Mr. Jenkins, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, up next we do, as Mr. Jenkins just alluded to, we have Mr. Patrick McCord coming to give us an update on recreational use of our lands.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary and members of the board. It's my pleasure to present to you this morning an informational update regarding planning, public use, and outreach activities associated with outdoor recreation on district lands. This presentation is intended to address three main points of inquiry that were brought forward by members of the board during the August governing board meeting. Specifically, are there universal standards or best practices that the district uses to develop recreation opportunities? Do we know how many people are using our properties and how we compare to other outdoor recreation providers? And what are we doing to promote our properties and ensure a user-friendly outdoor experience? I'd like to begin by referencing the statutory authority by which the district acquires and manages public land. Section 373.139 of Florida statute authorizes the district governing boards to acquire land for the core mission purposes of flood protection, water supply and storage, protection of water quality, and protection of the natural systems. Large tracts of conservation land we purchase not only provide ecological services that support the other core functions, but they also offer the potential for developing outdoor recreation opportunities. Section 373.1391 states that district land shall be made available for general public recreation purposes. It also provides examples of the types of recreation activities that are generally considered compatible with environmentally sensitive lands, and gives the district governing boards the authority to specify which recreation activities will be allowed. It also states that the suitability of specific properties for recreation and the types of recreation that are compatible with the ecological attributes of a specific property are to be addressed within the land management planning process, and that the Florida Department of Environmental Protection is directed to exercise oversight authority over the district via the management review team process in order to ensure the district is providing consistent levels of public access and offering recreation opportunities that are compatible with the core mission purposes for which the property was acquired. You may recall during the last two governing board meetings presentations on the land management planning process for Lake Monroe and an annual report on the management review team results that were provided by my colleagues Chris Kinslow and Brent Batchelder. The recreation is an integral part of each of these processes. So a framework for the process by which the district acquires public land establishes recreation as a component of our land management plans and is evaluated by FDEP through a continuous improvement process in the management review teams is laid out for us in statute. The district affirms this process with various provisions in our Chapter 40C-9 rules and actually takes it a step further with Policy 820, Section 4, which ensures the general public at large, the users who enjoy our properties, are given an opportunity to provide input into the process via a series of recreation public meetings. The policy divides the district into three recreation zones, the north, central, and southern zones. It requires a minimum of one meeting annually for each zone, and coincidentally, Meetings for all three of these zones will be taking place over the next 3 to 4 weeks on the dates shown on the slide. At these meetings, district staff provide updates on land management activities, projects, operations and maintenance activities that affect public access, but the primary purpose is to give our stakeholders an opportunity to provide face-to-face feedback, which when feasible is put into action on the ground. A wide variety of user groups participate in the recreation meetings. This slide shows just a few examples of recreation and access improvements that have been implemented based on feedback from a few of our more avid user groups, the airboating community and equestrian trail riders. Clockwise from top right are airboat-specific launches and levee crossings that accommodate the unique characteristics of airboats, shaded picnic pavilions that also serve as inclement weather shelters in remote locations, floating courtesy docks, larger equestrian-friendly parking areas with enough room to maneuver and park horse trailers, wider fence pass-throughs that accommodate horses and or people on horseback, and horse mounting and dismounting blocks that are installed at trailheads and rest areas. I'd now like to move on to the second point of inquiry on whether we count the number of people that are using our properties and how we compare to other outdoor recreation providers. In order to address this question, it's important to recognize that the district's lands are not necessarily in direct competition with other outdoor recreation providers. Rather, we are an individual component of a much larger statewide plan administered by the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. This plan is referred to as the Statewide Comprehensive Outdoor Recreation Plan, or SCORP. The development and implementation of this plan is actually outlined in statute under Section 375.021. SCORP describes specific types of recreation. It documents supply and demand, provides an inventory of current recreation opportunities, identifies unmet needs, and establishes priorities for meeting those needs. Furthermore, the water management districts are explicitly identified in Section 375.021 as cooperators with FDEP in this effort. SCORP recognizes two primary types of outdoor recreation: user-oriented outdoor recreation, which can be provided almost anywhere for the convenience of the participant, and resource-based outdoor recreation, which depends on some unique element or elements or combination of elements in the natural or cultural environments that cannot easily be replicated. Naturally, the district provides resource-based recreation opportunities. Drilling down a bit further, the district provides a specific type of resource-based recreation referred to as dispersed recreation, which fills a specific niche in the range of outdoor recreation experiences offered on public lands. By its very nature, dispersed recreation is most appealing and enjoyable when users are able to experience solitude and tranquility while recreating in a natural environment free from crowds and intrusive facilities and infrastructure. Bureau of Land Resources staff endeavor to maximize the quality of our users' experience by fostering an appreciation for natural ecological systems as opposed to maximizing visitor numbers, a quality versus quantity approach. Comparisons can be difficult between these different types of recreation. Both are highly beneficial and necessary, but are very different in the types of recreation services they provide and the manner and environment in which those services are delivered. These differences are a big reason why we generally try to avoid making direct comparisons between the district and other outdoor recreation providers. In addition to the unique type of recreation the district provides, the physical environment and highly open nature of district lands also makes measuring public use extremely difficult. One unique exception is the Lake Apopka Wildlife Drive, which has a single, gated, primary point of access with specific hours of operations. However, the vast majority of our properties are very different. Most properties have multiple points of access, different modes of access, and many miles of unfenced aquatic boundaries. The figures and graphics shown here help illustrate this point. The levee roads, gated entry, and regulated hours of operation make collection of visitor use data at the Lake Apopka Wildlife Drive relatively simple. However, the vast majority of our district properties are different and, in fact, are comprised largely of wetlands, 77% to be exact. The disproportionate composition of wetlands versus uplands on most of our properties poses a significant challenge in collecting visitor use data. The upper basin, in particular the River Lakes Conservation Area, Lakes Jessup, Monroe, and Loch Lusa conservation areas are all examples of properties that share open boundaries with aquatic systems. So rather than setting goals around user numbers, we focus on maximizing the availability of public access and providing the best possible user experience for the user groups who seek out our specific style of recreation. The Bureau of Land Resources currently manages 42 conservation areas spanning well over 400,000 acres of public land, 97% of which is open for public recreation. Over 530 miles of multi-use trails for hiking, bicycling, equestrian use, hunting, fishing, boating, canoeing, and kayaking. We offer primitive camping at 22 reservable campsites with an additional 47 non-reservable first-come, first-served backcountry sites, numerous picnic areas, observation towers, kiosks, boat, airboat, canoe, and kayak launches, fishing piers, and 35 miles of interpretive wildlife drives. So what are we doing to ensure a positive, user-friendly experience on our properties? Well, we recently hired a new land resource specialist, yours truly, to serve as a public use coordinator that will focus on recreation. We recently invested over $24,000 to update and replace various recreational infrastructure items such as picnic tables, fire rings, benches, grills, pitcher pumps, etc. We have kiosks installed at every trailhead and provide maps and detailed property information. All of our trails, campsites, and roads are inspected, mowed, and clearly marked on a routine basis. District staff have also worked with local property appraisers to establish 911 addresses on these undeveloped parcels of land and post them at the conservation area parking lots. For some properties, we happen to have on-site security residences that are occupied by qualified law enforcement officers, which also enhances site security. So what are we doing to expand our recreation footprint? In addition to adding new properties through various acquisition and conservation easement processes, we are actively and continuously assessing the potential to expand the footprint of wildlife management area and public small game hunting areas on district lands. This effort is supported in statute by section 379.3001, which directs water management districts to coordinate directly with FWC to ensure public hunting opportunities are maximized with a no net loss policy. In addition to increasing our recreational reach, our collaboration with FWC on these properties also results in a greater law enforcement presence. And to that end, in fiscal year 23-24, the district will be evaluating the potential to increase the acreage of wildlife management area and public small game hunting areas on district lands. District staff are currently assessing the potential for a new wildlife management area at Deep Creek Conservation Area. An additional acreage could potentially be added to existing WMAs at JP Hall Bayard Point, Dunn's Creek, the Upper St. Johns River Marsh, Buck Lake, and Salt Lake conservation areas. And finally, what are we doing to promote our properties? Our Office of Strategic Communications and Engagement puts out weekly media blasts on popular social media platforms with special features such as Trail Tuesdays and promos that correspond to articles in Streamlines and Water News. There are property-specific web pages with geospatial trail maps and details about each property's background and history. And there are even short YouTube videos that provide a glimpse of what each property has to offer. Our communication staff recently posted a new safety tips section on our website offering common sense recommendations for how to plan for a safe outing while visiting our properties. Additional exposure comes from coordination with partnering agencies through the management review team process and publications of wildlife management area brochures, which are posted on FWC's website. Staff also participates in public meetings, conferences, seminars, and outreach events where we share information and answer questions about our properties. And one of the most important ways we promote our lands and ensure an exceptional user experience is by applying effective land management strategies that result in the kind of natural beauty and aesthetic that can only be achieved through ecologically sound conservation practices. And with that, it is my pleasure to present you with this information, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Go ahead.
Couple of thoughts on promoting and advertising our great resources that we've got, which are phenomenal. I've religiously attended the rec meetings up in Palm Bay, in the upper basin. And when we first got the upper basin squared away, and most of it, 99% of it was done, I to a packed house there of airboaters and fishermen. As you know, they come in their gear, and it's a local crowd. And I got up in front of them and proudly kind of stated that I was hoping to work with the county and with the DOT to put signage on I-95 saying, as you drove into Union County, welcome to the headwaters of the St. John's, this exit Fellsmere with such and such facilities at your disposal. And the room was dead silent. And one of the not one, many of them said, we don't want the Bubbas from South Florida knowing about our great fishing hole. So you do a dance here, and rightly so. These guys have got some of the best bass fishing on the planet, which we have provided with the wonderful upper basin. And it's one of the great gifts we've got in the state of Florida, yet they don't want it to be advertised whatsoever. And they just wanted me to go away. And so I know the dance you all do. It's a difficult dance, and I get it because I don't want anybody to know my fishing holes. I go offshore and dive, but that hit me hard because I was so proud of the upper basin and wanting everybody to know about it. But I get it. But the other thought I had is I've done a lot of tours of the upper basin through the years, and I've seen damage done by a bad element, and we constantly fight that. I was a park ranger in grad school in California, in graduate school there, and the abuse of Yosemite all the way down the beach parks where I worked in details as a park ranger were unbelievable. What people did when they pulled up in their Winnebagos and they abused the resources and the camps, and we have the same problem here. And you got to bulletproof what we do in a lot of these areas because there's always a couple knuckleheads, but 99% of the people love and don't abuse the resource. But the abuses that we've suffered in the upper basin, you can't fathom there's someone that does that to such a nice structure. So it's a dance you do. You got to make it tough and to withstand the elements plus the abuses from the general public. It's tough. I know you guys have got a tough one to build structures that can last. And how do you promote it without getting the locals upset? So great job with all that you do. The Upper Basin project that I know and love is just phenomenal. And what you've, all the structures and the access, the airboat industry has become a huge cottage industry there. And Disney comes down with their massive airboats. I'm used to just 2-seaters, and now you've got these ones that seat 25, is it 30, coming down the Upper Basin. So we never even dreamed that the biggest complaint would be there's not enough airboat ramps out there. You guys need to build more and make them better, and more parking for the airboaters. So it's a neat thing to see, but you got to do a dance to where you don't abuse the resource and the structures we provide. It's tough. It's a challenge for the staff. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Certainly. Any other comments?
Sir, I got one.
Sure.
Just a short one. You go back to slide 2. Well, that one right there. How does that guy get away with her carrying the heavy pack and he's holding the bike? I don't think I could get away with that. So, if you know that guy, I'd like to talk to him. There's some techniques here maybe we can
I have
all
a
learn
feeling
from.
they're
Look at
they're
the heavy
separate
pack
parties.
that lady's got on.
I have
whatever.
a feeling there, yeah.
Thank you, Mr.
You know,
Chairman.
most guys won't ask for directions, and I think that's what he's doing from that gal.
Oh, well, then he's a wimp.
He
You
might
don't
be
ask, men
lost.
don't ask for directions. Give me a break. We stay lost.
All right, thank you. You know, I would just like to just kind of echo in on some of what Doug had to say today. You know, as an avid user of particularly the upper basin, many people know I am a boat manufacturer, but I also enjoy airboats, and I have one that I didn't manufacture, but I just love every bit of the vastness and connectivity of what we have throughout the St. Johns River, and particularly in the upper basin. You don't find that many places. Just the vast beauty of it, and then part of it is just sitting there. It's almost like big sky country when you get out there on the marsh. But I also, as a user of the resource, really appreciate, particularly over the last decade, I've noticed significant upgrades in things like airboat ramps and some of the shelters that are just extremely important, particularly during our quick inclement weathers in the summer and stuff when you get caught out there, to be able to run to some of our shelters. I don't even know if some people even know we have them, because you don't really see them. They're in the middle of nowhere, but they're these great shelters that are provided by the district. And so I don't know if everybody else knows to appreciate those sort of things, and they're provided by the district necessarily, but I do, and it's great work. And our public use of lands is just, it's like Doug said, it's almost a secret you don't want to let go of, you know, to some extent. So anyway, but good job, and thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Mr. Peterson, we have one comment card on this item.
On this item, sure.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chris Farrell with Audubon.
All right, Chris, recognized.
Good morning, Chris Farrell, Audubon, Florida. Just wanted to say a couple things. First, thank you to the district and your staff. The conservation areas are wonderful resources, not only for the environmental conservation and our environmental infrastructure for the state of Florida, but as a recreational amenity for the citizens. And I use your lands a lot, and Audubon chapters and our tens of thousands of members throughout the state are frequently out on the properties. There was a slide showing, you know, kind of from passive to active use, the different types of recreation, and we believe there's places and locations and necessity for all of those, that complete range of activities. You know, one comment would be, and I know your staff thinks about this, is just making sure that there's space for everybody. And frequently you hear from the active users, and those are users you see and know are out there using the properties. So just wanted to remind you that there's an extensive use of passive users who are using these properties, and especially for bird watching and you know, birding, which most of the Audubon members are out there doing. Having places that are quiet, that are, you know, peaceful, that are not disturbed, are incredibly important for that use of the resource. And it can be hard. It was mentioned, you know, it's hard to gauge who are you trying to cater different properties and different locations to. What's the demand for different types of recreational use? When I do land management reviews for the district, I point this out. So I'll just mention one way of gauging some of the passive use, at least from the birding community, is tool eBird. Anybody can access, and again, I've shared this with managers on reviews. So I just quickly pulled up Lake Apopka North Shore, 300 and, oh, my vision is getting bad. 346 bird species seen there on the Lake Apopka Wildlife Drive. 283 different bird species have been reported by birders using it. Now, those sites, you know, because you keep track of the usage there. But for other sites throughout the district, like Julington Preserve is one I've been to recently. 660 checklists have been submitted by birders, and usually these are people who are out in groups, larger groups with a lot of people. They'll just submit one checklist. So this lets you know about the resource and the bird species that are using it, which is good because, you know, it's hard to keep track of all the species using your properties. So it's better for the species inventory and management, but also it gives you an idea of the passive recreation use that's occurring, that you can see these people are out there. It's a way of keeping track of the birders, so to speak. So you know who's out there on your property using it and what they're using it for. We appreciate the land and being able to use it for birding, and just letting you know that there are tools so you can kind of gauge how much of this activity is taking place on your land. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Farrell. Okay, no other further comments? Okay, fantastic. Let's go ahead and move on to number 9 for information, the district's procurement solicitation efforts. And then we have Tina Veilhauer. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. My name is Trina Veilhauer. I'm the Deputy Chief of Staff, and I'm here to present informational item number 9. At its August meeting, the governing board asked for information regarding our procurement solicitation and efforts to increase vendor participation. So before I get into that update, I wanted to start with some foundational information about procurement in general. So pictured here is our dedicated procurement team. They've been very busy working with our program and contract managers to get the great work of the district implemented. So I've got on the slide a couple of basic facts. Over the last 3 years, we've averaged over 1,000 contract actions each year. Of those, about 85 relate to our bigger projects over $100,000. So they continue to be very busy doing great work. So how do we currently engage vendors and make folks aware of our solicitations at the district? And the main way is 2 different ways. We have our website where we post our solicitation information, and we also have 3 different online platforms that we use to make sure vendors are aware, and those are Demand Star, Vendor Registry, and the state's vendor bid system. Just with vendor registry, we have over 1,800 vendors listed and tagged to our district as interested in doing business with us. So that's really good news. We post our solicitations on the website and portals for the days shown here, depending on the type of solicitation we're doing. We also have statutes that prescribe additional advertising requirements. When construction projects reach these certain thresholds, we're required to do newspaper notices as well. So as we started looking at improvements that we could make to increase vendor outreach, we started with a 2-year look back to see if there was any kind of a correlation between the number of days an advertisement was posted or even the dollar amount of the project, and whether that made a difference in vendor participation. So I'm showing just a couple here as examples over that 2-year time frame. And the main point is it doesn't seem like it. And we've heard that from some of our vendors as well, that there's factors other than the amount of time or the dollar amount of the project that are play, such as the amount of money that's out there right now, federal, state, and local, for projects. Some of our vendors are having to prioritize projects just because there's a lot out there. So the main point is it doesn't look like the time of posting or the dollar amount is the leading driving factor of responses. So as far as changes, I want to talk about 2 different things we've done and then kind of a look ahead. So changes that we've implemented so far already in place, we've looked at our pre-bid meetings and tried to scale those back to the projects where it makes the most sense. When it does make sense, the project warrants a pre-bid meeting, we've moved that to earlier in the process to make sure vendors have time to respond. If you do it early in the process, it gives them additional time. We've also elevated some decision making when it comes to providing additional time. That used to be handled by our project managers. We've elevated that to division director conversations just to be sure we're hitting the mark. We also are doing follow-ups when we get single responses or folks, not many responses. We reach out to see if the time or there's some other issue with the solicitation that we can help, or that we need to do a second call, give additional time. One of the things I'm excited about is we just entered a new contract for a new vendor portal called Central Bidding. We will be implementing that here soon. It's a new portal that's focused on government procurement, so we're hoping that will also be helpful. And we're also doing additional reviews internally as solicitations are drafted. We're looking at the minimum requirements to make sure we're getting the right people to respond, but we're not writing them so stringent that we're deterring people who would be qualified to do the project from engaging with us. So looking ahead, we are going to continue to be busy doing the great work of the district. This is a projection for the next 6 months. We're projecting another 100 contract actions for a variety of different projects that are listed here. And with that in mind, we have additional enhancements that we want to make. In addition to the changes we've made, these are things that we will be doing here very soon. And I want to talk first about our website. That's one of our main places we reach people. So we're going to be adding a couple of very prominent procurement related focus areas or links. You'll see procurement added to our trending messages at the top, or I'm sorry, our trending topics at the bottom, and then to our scrolling message bar there at the top of our website. And then we're going to also add a quick link and a featured highlight button. All 4 of those will take you directly to our procurement webpage. And this is the procurement webpage where you will land. This will also be updated here soon to add the new central bidding vendor platform. And then I want to circle back kind of to where I started, which is with our dedicated procurement staff. We have implemented some internal changes as well. We will be looking at each of our solicitations to make sure that we're posting and advertising for the appropriate time frame given the project. We are going to add Construct Connect to our vendor notifications. That's a website and an entity that posts specifically construction related solicitations, so we can kind of leverage our work and their website to hopefully increase outreach. And then this photo I really like. It's actually from the University of Florida. Wait, let me get my notes right. The University of Florida Small Business and Supplier Diversity website. So this is our procurement director, Wendy Cox, and this is Godfrey Smith, our procurement supervisor. And so they attend a lot of these outreach events and will continue to do so, trying to get our folks and vendors interested, educated, and interested in participating. Thank you.
Thank you. Board have any questions or comments? No?
Sure. I've got a question for you.
Sure.
Have you ever surveyed the existing contractors to get their feedback as to what we're doing right or what we might not be doing as good a job on?
To my knowledge, no, but I'm not sure historically. I will have to ask. Not since I have been here, but it's a good idea.
It just might be
sure.
Something to try.
Yeah, no, that's a great idea.
Any other comments, questions? No? Fantastic. Is there any public comments for
Yes,
this
sir.
item?
We have 3 today.
Okay.
The first is Mr. James Hensley.
Is Mr. Are you speaking for Mr. Hensley or? Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Okay, Ms. Fisher, you're recognized.
Good morning. My name is Melissa Fisher. I live at 237 Lakeside Circle in Ponte Vedra Beach, Florida. Thank you for allowing me to speak today. I'm here discussing permit 220-19 for Marsh Landing, which was actually approved in December of 2019, was challenged and reissued again July of 2020. This permit included multiple fixes, including historical intermittent flooding from our roads and other areas. This is referenced as condition 26 in the TSR of the permit 21220-19. The permit has actually expired and it has only had a 2-year period on it for continue 26 to be completed. It is not completed. Here are a couple of topics that I'd like to point out. The work on condition 26 was supposed to have been completed over 2.5 years ago, and St. John's River Water Management District has not once issued a fine. Marsh Landing turned in over 20 sets of construction plans to do this work over the past 3 years. In July 1st of 2022, an approval letter was sent to Marsh Landing Master Association to begin work. They started then changing the project again, and an approval letter was sent in October of 2022. Then again in January of 23rd, a conditional approval was given again, but by February 23rd, construction schedules provided. They started at the end of March 23rd on the project to fix the flooding, but they have stopped since June 9th of the 23rd, and no work has been done. This has left my home been flooding the whole time by this work that's not complete. I'm asking if we could support Mike Register in finding Marsh Landing, as he has tried to gently, or maybe forcefully, can't speak for him, as he's tried to make Marsh Landing move forward by writing letters and discussing with them. So I don't know what we can do from here on out, but requesting fines, whatever size see fit, to move Marsh Landing along and not lessen the drainage that a third-party engineer that was hired to give comments on and not be overlooked. His name is Dave Hamstra from Pegasus Engineering that River Management hired, and I would like him utilized in this, continue to be utilized in this project, as he's the one who has the stormwater management system expertise to be used, and that's why he was hired by St. John's River Water Management District. The other thing I'd like to briefly mention is a consent order was initially just done with Marsh Landing. I'd like to ask that the side slopes be looked at again, as there was written in there 100 feet. I can't find in the rules for 4-to-1 side slopes is 100 feet. As Jacaranda, as you all are familiar with, that stance was not taken. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Winkler?
This would be Miss Marilyn McAfee.
We're recognized. Thank you.
I'm Marilyn McAfee. I'm a retired Foreign Service officer living in Ponte Vedra Beach to be near family. I'd like to echo the concerns of Ms. Fisher. We have major problems in terms of our stormwater management system, and they have not been adequately addressed. So I am here to add my voice to the request that you urge compliance with the permit and see that these kinds of shortfalls are taken care of. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments today. Mr. Henley? Ms. Winkler, that's the right order, correct? Thank you.
Thanks. So I'm Jim Hensley, 7330 Oakmont Court, Ponte Vedra Beach in the Marsh Landing community. So I ran out of time last time when I spoke about the Fifth Court of Appeals decision for the EdCC case where the permit was reversed. The reason why it's important, and I'll get to that in just a few minutes, some of the comments that they made was the engineers, HOA's engineering expert did not base any of the conclusions on the existing stormwater system. That's very important. The system deviated in several significant ways from the original permit design. The HOA possessed the as-built all along. Thus, the construction shortfalls cannot be considered a surprise to the HOA or to the district. Number 4, the HOA and the district knew well before the administrative hearing that the ALJ judge that the existing system and the as-designed system were remarkably different in many structural and functional regards. The reason I mention that is Mr. Cece is a pipe fitter from New Jersey, 76-year-old man, and his wife was a seamstress. They spent $80,000 to fight the district on this case. And I'm not a permit holder. I mean, I don't issue permits. I really, I'm just a lay person. I work on Wall Street for 25 years, but I look at this permit and think it never should have been issued. You guys can have a separate opinion, and we're fine with that. But the point is, the Marsh Landing subdivision permit that was issued, that I've been fighting for 5 years, and I've spent $150,000 of my family's money. is the same exact situation as Ed Cece's, but our permit has not been pulled back. It was issued by Ann Shortell. She's not here to defend herself, but I'll just tell you that our relationship is like a WWE cat fight between her and I, and that's just as easy. That's the best I can say. It's oil and water. Her and I will not be sending Christmas cards anytime soon. She made a huge mistake. She left these people with a horrible permit for Marsh Landing. Mike's right here. You can ask him. Mrs. Winkler sits right beside him. They know it's bad. So what Mike did was, to help us out, he brought in a guy by the name of David Hamstra, and so did St. Johns County Commissioners hired him also. During his investigation of the permit that was issued, he came up with a plethora of issues that the district missed. You're not perfect. You make mistakes. We all make mistakes. Mike's tried to do this consent order, which we have challenged. Mrs. McAfee and I have challenged because some of the dates in there are scary to us and our homes are at risk. At the end of the day, I wish I could turn back the clock, and start this all over again, but it's too late now. All I ask is that we all learn from our mistakes, all of us, both sides, and realize that at the end of the day, mistakes were made. And we're going to have to figure this out because the courts is not the way to go. My last 15 seconds, if you give me a little bit more, they issued a blanket easement, okay, to your staff saying my subdivision that they had the legal right to store water on 1,077 properties. Mr. Hamster has never heard of that in his 39-year career. Never. And this district has never allowed water to be stored on private property. But my subdivision came up with a legal letter that allowed them to say, we basically own my property. It will be a cold day, and you know what? Before someone steals my property from me. 1,077 homeowners, they took our property, and they're storing water on it. Now, the district to me should have said, no way in HELL am I going to allow this to happen, but they didn't. And to this day, Ann Shortell, and I hope she's listening, she's left us with a horrible situation here. On one hand, you have me suing you. If you reverse the permit, Marsh Landing is going to sue you. So they've chosen to let me sue over the issue. So all I'm asking is look, I'm a black belt Six Sigma from Wall Street. I'm a quality guy. I understand. I'm a certified public accountant, a CFO, one of the biggest insurance companies in the world. I've seen it all. But when you make a mistake, own it, come back and say we're sorry, and then we don't have to have Thomas Mayton and Jessica Quiggle fighting everybody. We can just say we made a mistake and we move on. So I'm begging this board to please interject in this situation. I still waiting 3 years to get my road fixed. That's flooding my home every single time it rains. I want to sell my home and get the heck out of this subdivision, but I can't. I'm handcuffed. So again, I don't want to keep coming down here every month. I'm asking nicely. I haven't raised my voice. I haven't yelled at anyone. But Ann Shortell left you with a horrible situation, but you should be able to fix that. And I thank you for your time. And I would like this put in the whatever you call it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Okay. And I believe that is the conclusion of our public comments. Thank you. Okay, so that was item number 10, and just noting that items 11 through 21, 23 through 26 were approved on the consent agenda. So we'll move on to 27, which is our pending litigation. Ms. Erin Preston.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I have a number of matters to report on this morning. The first ones are new matters, and the first one is Coastal Air Service Incorporated versus the district. This is a petition for a formal protest and administrative hearing that was filed yesterday regarding the district's notice of intended decision to award a contract for aerial herbicide application services to a company called Agricultural Air Services. The petition is under staff review. If not settled through the informal mediation process that's provided by statute, it may be referred to the Division of Administrative Hearings. The second new matter is William Merriman versus the district, and this is a petition for declaratory statement that was filed with the district on October 2nd. As required by the Uniform Rules of Procedure, notice has been filed in the Florida Administrative Register, and this petition continues to be under staff review. The third new matter is Edward and Anna Cece versus the district and Cedar Island Homeowners Association of Flagler County Incorporated. This, as you all recall, the district entered a final order denying the Homeowners Association's application to modify the stormwater system calculations related to its environmental resource permit last month. The petitioners have filed a notice of appeal of that decision at the 5th District Court of Appeal. That was on October 3rd. And I do have one resolved matter to report today. This is LaRue and Lori Ellis versus the City of Jacksonville, the district, and various other parties. This was a complaint that was filed in the Circuit Court in Duval County dating back to 2015. It included, among several other claims against the various parties, a claim for injunctive relief against the district, arising out of stormwater improvements that caused an alleged public nuisance. The district effected a partial settlement of the claims in 2017, and then the plaintiffs settled with the remaining parties and dismissed the case with prejudice on October 3rd of this year. The district did not pay any damages and obtained a release of all claims for affirmative relief against the district. This concludes my report.
Very much. Anybody have any questions on that? Comments? No? Okay, so moving on today, item number 8 is our governing board comments. Does anyone today have any particular comments or anything else they'd like to bring before us today? No? Thank you, and we'll move on and we'll go to the executive director's report and calendar. Mr. Mike Register.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. We'll start off today. Wanted to talk a little bit. Hopefully the video is playing. Yes, it is. In 2022, FWC requested that the district draw down the St. John's Water Management Area, which for those that have been around a while will know that it was called the Stick Marsh, to facilitate vegetative planting. We were able to do that by lowering water levels about 4 feet below the summer regulation schedule to help the plantings get established that they were doing, hoping that these plants would expand habitat for bass in the area, maybe to create a few more fishing holes for Mr. Bernique to go out there and find. As scheduled, we've returned the water levels to normal, and now, as you can kind of see in the video there, the plants appear to be doing really well. FWC invested about $100,000 on this project, which is located in our upper St. Johns River Indian River Lagoon Basin, as is shown there. So it's another example of a great partnership between us and FWC. We heard a little bit about these items today with gizzard shad harvest, and this is just a report of what happened with our last one because we wrapped it up in mid-September there on Lake George, getting rid of about 704,000 pounds of shad, almost 6,000 pounds of phosphorus. Total project cost we spent $545, and as Dean mentioned, that's about almost $94 per pound of phosphorus, which is a really cheap rate in getting rid of phosphorus. So appreciate the board approving the contract that will allow us to continue this operation in both Lake Apopka and Lake George next year. Finally, as we attempt to recruit staff younger and younger and younger, the applications for our Blue School Grant Program just concluded, and we will be funding 20 schools in 10 counties. And the projects range from educating students on water quality through sampling efforts to work in the field, learning about careers and water conservation. Total funding amount this year is more than $38,000, which brings the total that we've awarded since 2016 to over $163,000. I want to say a big thank you to all the staff here at the district that served on the committee to review all the applications, and all of the teachers that took the time to participate in this year's program. I think it'll provide valuable information and insight to the children as they go through their school activities. That concludes that part. I'll go on to calendar. And November 10th, Friday, we will be closed in the observance of Veterans Day. Our normal board meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, November 14th. At that meeting, we will be approving governing board dates for the following year. So I'll send out before then some proposed governing board dates. I remember years before there was concern about some of them coinciding like with the start of session in January. And once again, our board meeting would coincide with the start of the legislative session. So if there's interest in moving that to the day before or in another week, we can certainly look into that. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. That was an excellent report. Is there any other business that we're aware of to come before the board today? No. At that point, let's have a motion to adjourn if it's so needed. And first and a second, and all in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you. And thank you all for behaving. Since I had the gavel today, I felt like the substitute teacher, and some of these guys up here threatened to, use spitballs and stuff. So I tell you, I made it through. Thank you.